I think we are live now.
Nice. Good job. Go team.
Yes. Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us here today. I'm Aga Wavrinovic, and I am a life coach. And organizing community for moms is a big passion of mine. This is Moms Who Dare interview with badass moms. And, you can see I can't stop smiling because Mellicia is here, and I just really can't wait to chat with her here and for you to get to know her. Welcome, Mellicia, and please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, Aga. I'm so excited to talk to you. I am Mellicia Marx. I own Poplin Style Direction. It's personal styling for women, mostly in the Seattle area, but outside the space too. I help women understand their budget, body type, lifestyle, and personal style, and then help them express themselves through their clothing, which is super fun and amazing.
And just so you know, I met Mellicia because I was her client. And I'm kind of still am returning. Mellicia is always on my go-to if I need to do some fashion adjustments. And that was really a blessing. That changed so much in my life back then. I'm not sure if you realize all of that, Mellicia. So that's why I'm even more excited to bring Mellicia to all of you. Because she, apart from being a super fun person and a true world changer, hair styling services are much more than styling. So check her out. We'll talk about that in the end of the interview. But Mellicia, let's jump right in. So Mellicia is a mom of one boy who is now
10. He's so old. He's double digit.
Double digit, right? Check this. Crazy. Mellicia, so the questions are pretty much the same I ask most of the guests, just because I would like to kind of highlight how the experience of motherhood is the same or different for women. And also, we are kind of open to some unexpected, whatever vulnerability, whatever comes up, So I'm going to jump right in and ask you the first question. Who did you used to be?
And by this one, I'm assuming you mean before I reproduced, right?
The question is open-ended, so you can start. The used to is wherever you want.
Wherever you want it to be.
You decide.
I feel like I used to be someone who had a vision. I have always been able to see where I want to go and see creative solutions to things. And that I didn't have anyone around me who saw any of that. And I feel like it was really frustrating for me because I was always like, oh, this is how you do it. Of course, here's the solution. And it felt like I was like in my own world. And so I think I really struggled with trying to find my direction because each time I felt like I had the answers, I couldn't find anyone else who seemed to know, and I definitely was a traveler, an adventurer, a risk taker. If I didn't like something and I felt like it wasn't the right fit for me, I would put 3 months rent in a jar and go somewhere else. I would move. It was great. And I think I was someone who really wanted to, I'm a helper, right? And I really wanted to make the world better. I feel then and now I feel very powerful, like I can have an impact. So I think I really wanted to find a way to do that. And I thought that the way to do that was through nonprofits and philanthropy, because it was like it got me MPA, and I thought, oh, it's like the MBA with a conscience. Not that you can't have a conscience with an MBA, as I now know, but I was trying to find my way to make a difference. Mm-hmm. And so I did all that, and I found that I was so disconnected from the work that I just never really felt like I was having more of an impact and making a big difference. And at the same time, I felt like I wasn't making as much money as I could make if I was doing something else. So I, again, just felt kind of stuck. And I think that all of that really changed when I both married my husband and had our kid a couple of years later. And that was a big shift for me.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So what was the shift exactly? What did this milestone of marrying your husband and then having a kid brought to your life?
You know, it was really fascinating. I was not someone, I actually didn't even know if I wanted children. I was not someone who was like pining to have kids. I did not babysit every weekend. Like
Mm-hmm.
I was fine either way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think with my husband, I found someone who actually was a visionary like I was and was very creative. And when I would talk about these things, he had such really cool life experiences that he was like, oh yeah, that's totally doable. The way that I thought they were totally doable, but I could just never have someone else around me. And so as soon as that door was open to me, then it sort of changed everything. And that's when I realized that opening my own business and styling was a way to have more of an impact in people's lives than I could ever have in my previous career. And I think that was a real outside of the box thing to think, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that once that happened and we had our son a few years later, I think that that experience gave me a couple of things. First, gave me the opportunity to create my own family. I did not have an awesome upbringing. And having my own family, like having this moment where you're like, whoa, this is my family, gave me the power to decide what I wanted family to be to me. And my husband always says this great thing. He always says, you can create new memories, like whatever that is. And so I found that it's really been empowering for me to create these new memories in all these situations where I didn't realize, like, oh, that's really painful. Oh, I don't like this for this reason. And oh, whatever. And now it doesn't have to be like that. And our son, delightfully so, is also like us, like wildly creative, which is both good and bad, I suppose. But now I have like a little team of people where we can have big ideas and talk them through and brainstorm and have a lot of fun. And it's made it seem, I feel like anything is possible. I like really think that all the time. It's really like choosing, do I want to put the time and energy into this? Is this the direction I want to go? And if I do, then I can do that. It'll be great. And I can succeed. And so it's nice to have a little team.
I just so love this, how you talk about this. Of course, I know you and Justin, and I feel that you guys are a great team. But hearing this, that, you know, that meeting him enhanced this side of you that's visionary. It's so great because so many people lose that. You know, many people have some super talents which are so unique that no one can relate.
Right.
And if you don't really, you know, hook up with the right people, it can so easily get lost, right? So
yeah,
I just love this part of the story that you met Justin and you felt that part of you was more alive, right?
Yeah. And you know what I think is really fascinating too? So I have always been like very creative, but when someone would ask me like, what's your medium? I'm like, I don't know. Like I know so much about music. It's unbelievable. And yet simultaneously, am I a musician? No. You know what I mean? And so I always, there was no way to like show that I was creative. Like I don't paint, you know what I mean? And then when I changed my career to become a personal stylist, I still had the same skills that I was using before. And yet now people refer to me, they'll say about the both of us, like, oh, you guys are creatives, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I was that before. And before I changed jobs, no one would have said that. They would have said, oh, Justin is creative, you know, and I'd be like, I'm creative too. So it shows what a difference it makes the way that the world perceives your job. And I think that's kind of sad, honestly.
That's so sad. And I'm just so glad that you brought it up, Mellicia, because you just opened a Pandora's box, because in our culture, there's this huge pressure on productivity. So there's almost no time to just fool around, be creative, which not necessarily even is fooling around, right? It can bring you some amazing results, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like, I'm watching this hilarious technology thing happening with me, but oh, it's fixed. She solved it herself. Siri, thanks. Yes, I know exactly what you mean. And it's funny because I am weirdly obsessively productive at the same time. where I'm like, what did I get done today? What am I going to do? Like, I always have lists going. And I think it's because this speaks to the whole life coach thing for you. I am on a constant journey to improve. And I think there's a fine line between being critical and moving forward and like looking at like, oh, I realize that this is something I don't love and this is where it came from and how can I change that? And so being able to like balance that in a healthy way, I think is really important. But it also shows that having my son gave me this incredible gift of opportunity to be able to break a cycle and to feel like I can parent in a way that I wish I had been parented. And those where you have these kind of aha moments where you're something, innocuous is happening with your child. And then you're like, oh, this is not the way it was done with me. And you kind of realize like, what do I want to do here? And I think that feels really good it's not like I'm doing it perfectly by any means. But definitely feeling like I've learned a lot from where I've been and have been able to make it better moving forward, both for him and for me.
Right. It's a healing process, especially when you have some wounds from your own family of origin. When you parent, everyone makes our mistakes. I have a lot of shameful mistakes on my account, which I'm going to talk about at some point. And I am talking actually about it because, there's a lot of us, we can be perfect parents because what does it even mean, right? But I think the whole process, going through this process consciously, it brings a lot of healing. What you said, the moment of realizing that your parenting style and what you bring to this whole parenting game is so different that you received.
Right.
And you almost like parent yourself in some ways,
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Where you're like, oh, hey, look at that. And also it's interesting because in my work, I find that with my clients, right? Because it's pretty clear early on with so many women, when you're asking them about their experience and trying to get inside of her head and see what she sees. And then you can bring that together for a vision with clothes and all that. But you get very quickly like, she has issues around what she can and can't wear. And what I just use air quotes, that happened. And like her body type and what she thinks about her body and all these things. And they tend to come from a conversation with an aunt, like an offhanded comment when she was 12, or something her mom used to always say to her, or something that, a partner or whatever. And so you see how things can damage people and they may or may not realize it. And then to have an outside person who's has no vested interest, who's not trying to, have no angle to be like, hey, no, you can totally wear that. There's no reason that you can't wear that if that's what you want to wear. And I think it really helps people to have someone from the outside come in and give you permission in that way to just be who you are. And I think that's the same thing that you're doing with your clients too, is to be an outside voice to say, oh no, like I see what's going on here and you're doing great. You're great. It's fine.
Yeah, we all need that kind of affirmation, definitely. But I love that. The imperfect parenting is kind of your own journey of healing, and how, like the consciousness of that, how you can bring it to the table with working with the clients and making difference in their lives. I have experienced that with you for sure. So that was very inspiring. So, so if you were to say, what was your breakthrough to bring you to where you are now in this whole process? Was there any kind of like an aha moment? You mentioned an aha moment, but I wonder, was that or was it something else?
Yes, I think I had a big moment where we had been, it's kind of weirdly personal, but I'm sure it's fine. Like, hey, Aga, it's like we're having a normal conversation. We had gone back to see my family, and my son was a few years old, and we had like a really not good experience. And it wasn't until after I got back home to Seattle and I was walking along Westlake, and it kind of occurred to me like, whoa, that was not okay. And how I had become conditioned, where I think like when you have a rough childhood and then into adulthood, if you still have a relationship with your parents, and if things, you don't live in their house anymore, like it's fine, whatever, everything's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's not until you have children, and if you watch, or in my case, I watched the same behavior occurring with my own child right in front of me. And I was like, whoa, that's not how we are with my child. That's not what we do, and then you kind of are like, okay, whatever. And then you go home, and I was like, wait a minute. I was walking, and I just remember thinking, like, that's like really not okay. Like, it's like gone past the point of something that makes me uncomfortable to something that is like dangerous to my kid. And like, whoa. And I think the real moment for me was realizing that even though I had done a really good job of creating boundaries over the years and, doing what, like, communicating, but also like finding the line and blah, 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 that once I realized that behavior would continue, I just felt like I couldn't participate, and I think it was a real aha moment for me, because once I changed the boundaries with certain members of my family, it really changed the way that I parented. It like freed me up to feel confident and like, these are the choices we choose. And honestly, it made me realize how I had created this life around me with people who were supportive and interesting and fun and capable and doing all this cool stuff. And to be able to surround my son with those kinds of people as well, I feel like opens him up to a lot of possibilities. So that was a real moment for me, and it like has shifted my life in a pretty profound way.
I like that. I like this story. Thank you for sharing. And I also think that this is fascinating that you were there in a situation and it took you a while,
right,
to have this occur to you. That's the conditioning. And I feel like this is also a process of, having this experience kind of like opens you to, oh my gosh, this was so horrible for me, this realization, right? Like you kind of knew, but it confronts you extra with this, like an extra confrontation, right?
Yeah.
That also is huge for healing. You kind of give yourself some love because, oh my gosh, this is what I went through. And I would never want my kid to go through this.
Yeah. And it's, not delusional either, like people need to experience hardship. But I think it also is a really big shift where you sort of don't, I think as a survivor in life, like of trauma or of whatever else you may have experienced, I think, I'm sorry, Siri is talking to me over and over. So I think Siri's not that interested in trauma. So if you're a survivor of trauma or whatever else has happened with you, sorry. Okay, I'm taking out the headphones. Aga, are you ready?
I am ready, yes.
I'm ready. I'm doing it.
Yeah, you're doing so well. I couldn't even tell that Siri is talking to you. And now I can hear you. Wait.
I'm not sure I understand.
Okay, hold on. I'm sorry to do this to you in the middle of all of this.
No, please, it's all good. You do it.
Okay.
Sorry that you do it to
Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Excellent. Okay, I'm sorry, all of you. You can hear my story about trauma again, but too much Siri involved in my personal life right there.
Exactly right.
I know. So I guess what I was going to say is, I think that when you have experienced that kind of trauma and then you survive it, right? You do whatever you can do, and then you go to therapy or read books or heal or do whatever you can to figure out what learned behavior you have and how you can change that and whatever. And you feel like you've gone through this process and you're like, oh, I'm in good shape, things are good. And then something will happen that makes you like reevaluate it all. And you're like, oh, it turned out like I thought I had these boundaries, but apparently all this stuff was worse than I realized. You know what I mean? Like you kind of normalize it. So I think that it's really kind of fascinating because once you are able to like dig into all this stuff, and you're like going through your journey, but then to be able to have work where I am able to do that with other women as well in this capacity that you don't expect, right? Because it's just clothes. Like, you're like,
not just clothes, but this is crazy, Mellicia. I'm just I'm smiling because I so can relate to it, that the healing process, first of all, is never linear process, right?
Right.
And I've noticed that when you have kids and the kids grow, when you parent them at certain different ages in their different developmental phases, you face some little pieces and bits of things which still need to be healed because you didn't realize.
Yeah.
It's like
Right.
sweeping the corners, and the corners only appear when you're ready, or like, when you're a kid, right? You realize, I have it all the time. And also the funny thing is that the trauma is very kind of, there's a lot of shame about it.
Mm-hmm.
But then you go and you work with your clients and you realize the shared humanity, because everyone has some kind of thing, right?
Right.
Different, to different extents, different intensity. But human nature is so that it's hard. Something hits you hard, but someone else is kind of cool about it. So you can't really compare it. It's non-linear again, right?
Well, and I think what is really beneficial, because there's always a silver lining, right, to everything. So like
right.
that, I mean, part of why I'm so creative, I'm sure, stems from that whole experience. And also part of why I'm able to be so empathetic. I'm a really highly empathetic person, like almost to a fault, right? But that really helps with my job because I get it very quickly. I'm like, oh, I see you. And I think that being raised as someone who was never seen and taking so long to get to a place where I'm like, oh, here's a person who sees me. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
You know what
and
I mean?
I deserve it. And it's all good
Right.
as it should be.
And how it should be for everyone, right? And I feel like that is my role, to help other women have that moment where they feel like they are seen, and then to be able to carry that throughout their day in whatever they're doing.
Yeah, I can definitely, I can definitely attest that I felt that with working with you, Mellicia. I'm very grateful for that, for sure.
I feel the same way. And also because, as an aside for anyone listening, because you're such a star client, because I tell stories about you for years about, I'm like, well, we would come up with all these ideas together, and then she'd say, okay, I'll make that. And I'd go, great. And she'd make it, and I'd come back. And it was so fun, like, to be able to come up with these ideas and collaborate with you, and then have you make your clothes, and then come back and fill in gaps with things we need to buy with the things that you've made. And like, that's what it's supposed to be, right? Because it's about you. Like, the idea is like, what brings you joy, not what brings me joy.
But in fact, the fashion, it's not just clothes, as you said, because it's really, so my story here, I will quickly share, because that was a huge thing to work with you for me, because I have always had this interest in expressing myself in fashion somehow. But in fashion, meaning like this kind of like a made up fashion to play some kind of imaginary game. And it happens a few times I was ridiculed for it by grown-ups in my life. And since then, I grew this shame of like trying to wear something different. And fashion is one of my ways of expressing myself. It's not, and the thing is that I feel like a badass now because I own whatever I want to wear, wearing no bra. Yeah, give it to me, right? And whatever else I want to wear, just because I like it and I feel comfortable with it. And because I don't know, I like these two colors together or something. So that's such a liberation for me after having this experience of most of my life thinking that this is super, ridiculous to even like try to put something weird on yourself.
Yeah, but it's not. It's how you differentiate yourself. I mean, I would think also, with your past, having grown up in Poland, that you weren't able to express yourself. I don't know, I'm just making this up, but it would feel to me that you were in a situation culturally where you couldn't express yourself, and to find these ways, it's subversive, right? To be able to kind of do that through your clothes is a really cool, amazing thing to be able to do. You know what Justin said to me once? we were dating. And so my money was my money, you know, it wasn't like it was mixed up together, but I would always feel so guilty when I would go shopping. And I was in graduate school, I was broke, and I spent all this money at like Old Navy. I mean, I probably spent like $150 or something, but I felt so bad. I was like, I bought these clothes. And he said, he looked at me and he goes, you know, I don't know why you feel guilty about that. And he said, clothes are your art form. They're your medium. He said, if you were a painter and you spent a bunch of money on paints, you wouldn't feel guilty. And I was like, and that was years before I opened the business. And it was like understanding that whatever your way to communicate that is, whatever your way to express yourself, whatever you find that brings you joy is cool. Like, you know, I think people have so much baggage about that. Like Lego, you know, like they're trying to like market to adults now, which I think is so awesome because our family is already like deep in the adult Lego. But it's like, I don't know why they should need to, because if you love doing Lego, you love doing Lego. Like, who cares?
Exactly. So we're back to this creativity, no shame for creativity, right?
Sure.
Every part of life, play is very important.
And I think it's hard for people to find things that bring them joy. So my God, when you do, stop overanalyzing it.
Yeah, totally. Mellicia, I wonder, what would you say about your identity now? What makes you you?
That's a good question. I should probably have you just answer for me. I think that it is that I'm very empathetic, both not necessarily even just with people I've met, but like people out in the world. I feel like I have a lot to give. I feel like I'm someone who people listen to. And so I have a responsibility to do something with that. And I feel like I have like a real, I don't know, like I know everyone's like family, I'm devoted to family, whatever. But like my little team Marx is no joke. Like I'm not messing around. And I think that's a really big part of who I am. And in the midst of like the pandemic, that's like
even more, right?
That's right. Where I'm like, I'll tell you more about my husband because I literally haven't seen another person in a year.
I know, right?
I know. I'm like, I have a small circle of stories to tell you.
Yeah, I know. I hear you. It's the same for many of us. That's right. So, you know, so your identity is your empathy and kind of, and your creative Marx team, right? So there's creativity and empathy, but that's Mellicia, you know, you are the world changer.
Well, that's what I'm always telling you.
Yeah.
I think I'm also, you know, I think something that is unique to me that you know how you forget that people aren't like you and you have to remind yourself, you know what I mean? Like, oh, sure, I'll like be the MC for 5,000 people. That's fine. You know, and then you're talking to someone, they're like, that's crazy. You're like, oh, I didn't realize that's crazy. You know, you kind of forget at things that you're more comfortable with and I weren't as comfortable with. I think that I don't know where it comes from, but I really do think I can do anything. I really think like if it needs to be done, and I think I'm much better working outside the system. Can I tell you, this may be an aside, but I think it's so interesting. I've been thinking about Nancy Pelosi lately and how, you know, she was a mom at home with 5 kids or whatever she had until I feel like she was in her late 30s or 40 when she became a senator, which is or a House of Representatives member. Sorry. Point is, she didn't work in a regular job or an office, and she's this super bright woman, right? And then she went straight to an elected office to become the most powerful woman in arguably the world, right? She's no Angela Merkel, but you know, she's right there. And like, if she had, after she had her kids, gone and tried to get a job, she would like maybe have made it to middle management before she retired. Like, what would the world have lost? You know? And I think a lot about how sometimes the structure is not prepared for what we have to bring. And sometimes you just have to go outside of the structure, you know?
People, now, if you watch it later, rewind it and listen to it again. I so much love it. And Mellicia, this is why I do it, because I am amazed what many women can pull off, you know.
Right.
This is incredible. Yeah, I used to work on oil rigs, and having two kids, two stepkids, like, yeah, I was suddenly overwhelmed by the amount of things you need to remember, think of, care for, and no one tells you. And in this patriarchal culture, it's just so hard to navigate it in any sane way.
Right.
So yeah, so that's why women don't want to subscribe to the corporate or mainstream culture if you want to get somewhere, right?
Yeah, there's no other way. And this is kind of dark, I guess, but we don't have a society that supports families at all, like in any conceivable way. And you could see that during the pandemic, if not any other time. I mean, parents will be held back financially for generations from the amount of time that they're losing money and opportunity during this, with parents, men and women, who are not taking on extra roles and extra responsibility at work because they're caring for their families. And there's no one helping to
I know. I agree with you.
Find a way. I'm sorry.
This hurts me to even observe it in this, especially in America, that I remember working in different countries, and my colleagues had to go. 4:30 he needs to go because he's coaching a soccer team.
Right.
And imagine that at any corporations here. I feel like this is a shame that people have to pretend they don't have families and they're always available to make money for some giant companies. So this is definitely, yeah.
And I think it's a really fascinating thing. It's something I've thought about a lot since I've been home. As a person, I have always taken a lot of pride in the diversity of our circle of friends. Like you come to our parties. Like
I know, right? I love Mellicia's parties, people.
We love our parties too. But because they're filled with, people always say, like, everybody here is so great. Like, what a good person. What a nice, warm, wonderful, welcoming person. And most people come to these parties don't know anyone else. And I tell them that when they come in, like, just know you're not like the one person who doesn't know this group. Nobody knows one another. And don't be afraid to just talk to strangers, because everybody's a stranger, But people have a great time because their diversity of backgrounds and income levels and, all sorts of things. And I would say over half maybe of our friends don't have children. And that's very rare. I didn't realize it was so rare until now, but being in this situation with the pandemic and having so many friends who don't have children, and like seeing the totally different experience that everyone is having because of that. And the friends we have who have kids, but they're both working 60 hours a week, is a very different experience.
Yeah.
We're able to spend more time with their kids too. So I just think like there's a lot to be learned here. And I really look forward to like what social scientists are going to figure out about this time. And I hope that as a society, we're able to like nurture these next generation of children that it's been really hard for them. I hope they get resilience out of it and not just damage,
I'm quite hopeful, I mean, comedy is most obviously different, but
Mellicia. I know too. That's what I mean. There's always a solution.
Yeah, there's always a silver lining for sure. What brings you most joy?
No matter what kind of place I'm in, if you put on good music, it will like transform my mood in like a millisecond. I get a lot of joy from my kid because he's hilarious. And I get a lot of joy like every time I drive on I-5 and go over the bridge and see Lake Union. Every single time I say this, like, we live here. Like, I can't believe that I live in this like extraordinarily beautiful place. And there are people who've never seen the ocean. You know what I mean? And so I get a lot of joy with like, I have a lot of those things during the day, those like little moments where I'm very aware of like, wow, I love this chair. It's so beautiful. And it makes me so happy.
I know, that's so great. I asked you this question. I thought, Mellicia is so much fun. Like, like it seems like question, but actually, yeah, I love that driving over that bridge on I-5.
I really do. And I think like I wish that we could all like take more time for those kinds of things. You know, I do that with our son too, the poor kid. He's like reading. It doesn't matter. He was like 6 months old, he's 10 years old, and I'm like, we're going over the bridge. Look how beautiful it is.
Right, boundary near there. Children, are you looking? I know.
It's amazing. But it's like, what else can you do? You know, you can't control the world. You can't control
Yeah.
your boss or how much money you have. Like, there's so many things you can't control that are happening to you, but you can control whether or not you take this moment every time you drive over the bridge to look and
I
appreciate
know.
how
You
beautiful.
know, Mellicia, this reminds me when the pandemic started and we were all freaked out that schools are closed for 6 weeks. Remember that moment?
Yeah.
I remember the people were freaking out and I was kind of cool about it. And also I was looking out. I'm really lucky because I have these lovely trees here.
Yeah.
I was looking out at these trees, the squirrels jumping up and down, whatever. And I was thinking, geez, nature doesn't care. Everything is as beautiful as it was 2 weeks ago,
Right.
right? So that was kind of anchoring for me, for sure. And Mellicia, now it's going to be a little bit tougher question, which is about your challenge. What is your biggest day-to-day challenge?
That's a good question. I think I am in a place of, you know, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to think about how this pandemic has affected personal styling in the retail industry and services in general, service industry. So I'm in a place of like thinking about what it all means and what's the next step and whatever, but also being patient and like really kind of loving where I'm at. So I think my greatest challenge is honestly like I'm happy. I love my family. I love our house. We're doing all this stuff on the house. Like I have creative outlets and, you know, I have a lot of joy. And then as soon as I look outside of this, I'm just kind of overwhelmed with like the pain and despair and what people are just like the struggle, the like incredible struggle. And I find that my biggest daily struggle, honestly, is trying to balance that. Like I'm someone who is accustomed to taking action and being in a situation where you can't go take action, you know what I mean? And so you want to like be grateful and share what you have with others, but also you can't wake up every day and be in despair because how can you get through it, you know? So I think it's that.
Balance.
That makes sense.
That makes totally sense. When you say that, it just also seems like so Mellicia, you know?
Like
Mellicia.
your another thing.
And there's the last question for you. Who are you becoming?
It's a great question. I don't know the answer, Aga. I was thinking about this before, and I bet she's going to ask me who I'm becoming. I can't believe that I feel a little bit stumped by that, but I think I don't know. I feel like I'm just sort of in it, you know? I'm like,
nice.
You know, like I was listening to some of your other interviews, and when women were talking about like, I used to be like this, and then this happened, and then et cetera, et cetera. And I feel like that transition place of then this happened is where I am. And so I don't know who I'm becoming, but I know that something is happening. And in the same way that, you know, 8 years ago or whatever, I quit my job, not with a plan to start this business, but with a plan to leave my job. Like I was like, I don't like this job. And I thought, oh, I'll just get another job in the same, I'll do like public affairs. You know, it never occurred to me that I would be doing something totally different or that I'd be working for myself. And then it took me, I decided to give myself the summer with my son. And by September 1st, I'd have a plan. And by October 1st, I'd make money. And like, I was like, this is what I'm doing. We have enough money set aside for me to be able to do this. And then I came up with a business, and that's what I did. And it was great. And so I feel like I'm kind of in a similar place where like something is happening and I have like ideas about things and this and that. And I'm trying to just give myself the space to like let it happen. And then as soon as it does, I'm just like off. Like that's kind of how I work. So I'll get back to you I guess. Or
So
you'll tell me who I became.
I am very curious about this. I'm very curious. And everyone, you can also wait for what's going to happen with Mellicia's business and Mellicia's, because it's not actually, I want to say it's not only business. This is just so much more than business, seriously, people. So you need to check that out. In the comments below this video, there are some links to Mellicia's website. Check out her blog. So the blog has a lot of so-called evergreen content, which means you're going to find some useful articles on how to start something that's going to inspire you. But also Mellicia recommends a lot of local small businesses, little shops to shop for your Christmas presents. So I'm not sure how, up to date this is, but I'm sure many of these businesses are still there for you. So check it out. Mellicia is a great resource, people. So I'm so pleased. Thank you, Mellicia, for being here today.
Thank you. Can I interrupt you before we close and just say,
please,
on a personal note, I am just elated to hear you say evergreen content, which makes me know how deep you have gotten into small business land and like figuring out all the like things for your site and all the things that I did all by myself 8 years ago. And like to see your transformation to get to the point where you would just be like evergreen content, whatever, is like, I feel like, Mom, I feel so proud. I'm like, go. So that's exciting. I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity. It's really nice to just catch up with you. And hopefully there's some good stuff in here for people that will kind of get them through the day,
Yeah, people listen to it one more time because, there's lots of wisdom in here. And check out Mellicia below in the comments. Mellicia, thank you so much. Thank you for watching us.